Tonight, I bring you something special. The beginning of a brand new series, The Inheritance Bloodlines, a chilling tale of loss, survival, and the darkness that creeps just beyond the edges of our world. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. And please, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I always appreciate hearing from my listeners. You help keep the fire lit. Now, find yourself a nice comfortable seat, lean back, and prepare yourself for what's to come.
It never starts the way one expects. The councilman, his wife of 10 years, and his daughter, at home. A family asleep on a rainy night in Tacoma, Washington. The year was 2015. Career criminal Kevin Yates had spent the night drowning in whiskey and whatever pills he could scrounge. No one knows how he ended up at Councilman Harold Mercer's house or where he got the gun he was carrying that to this day he claims he doesn't know how he came to have. But he was there, and Mercer confronted him. The struggle was short and deadly. A single gunshot echoed through the Mercer home. No one saw little Sarah standing in the hallway. She'd woken during the shouting and got out of bed to see what was going on. She died before she could scream. Her nightgown turned crimson red with blood. Victoria Mercer, not being able to bear the loss of her daughter, took her life a month later. Harold had lost the two most important women in his life. Harold stopped sleeping after the funeral. His house was not a home anymore. The walls creaked with a sound that sounded almost alive. He wandered its rooms like a ghost trapped between life and the afterlife, sometimes forgetting to eat, to shave, to change clothes. Then came the trial, swift but unsatisfying. Kevin Yates appeared in court still hollow-eyed and sluggish, claiming no memory of the night in question, the house, the gun, or Sarah Mercer. His attorney painted him as a broken man shaped by trauma and substance abuse, not evil. He wept on the stand. Harold watched from the gallery, unmoved. The jury saw a man who regretted his actions. Harold saw a coward who lived while his daughter was buried beneath 6 feet of dirt. Every tear, every apology, every clinical excuse scraped against the raw edge of Harold's grief. Trauma, addiction, instability. Words meant to dull the weight of a bullet that had torn through his child. The jury convicted Yates of manslaughter, not murder. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole. No death penalty. Harold didn't want remorse or condolences. He didn't want closure or prayers. He wanted real justice. And so, as the nights grew longer and the nights became days, and the days became weeks that found Harold one night drowning his sorrows in a bottle of whiskey. It was then the dream found him asleep at his desk, his cheek pressed against a photo of Sarah, now worn at the corners from weeks of silent mourning. In the dream, she stood before him, not as she had been, but older, changed, as if time had passed in some place beyond the veil. She wore a flowing white dress, her face soft and sorrowful, her eyes heavy with unspoken grief. She did not speak. Instead, she lifted a single finger and pointed over his shoulder. Harold turned. A tall man in a black suit stood at the far end of a corridor that hadn't been there before. Faceless. Still. The air around him shimmered like heat waves off asphalt. The corridor stretched endlessly behind him, lined with ancient doors, each one marked with carvings Harold could not understand. One door opened slowly. Beyond it, a twin V sigil, one upright, one inverted, floated in the void. Two mirrored V-shapes joined at their tips, glowing faintly with pulsing energy. It whispered not in sound, but in sensation, like pressure behind the eyes. He couldn't hear words, only intent. He woke with a jolt, drenched in cold sweat. But the twin V sigil, one upright, one inverted from the dream, was now burned into the surface of his desk, right where his cheek had rested. The next day, while searching through the attic for old papers, Harold found a box he didn't remember storing. Inside was a book, ancient, leather-bound, and brittle. The title pressed into its cover, Ob Tenebra Verum. His hands trembled as he opened it. The pages were filled with arcane symbols and diagrams, but they moved, shifted. The more he stared, the more they made sense. He felt it, the same whisper from his dream, curling behind his ears. Not madness, guidance. And he began to read. The language was archaic, Latin-based but not fully. It referenced spirits, forces from below the breath of waking men, and rituals for communion, summoning, and binding. One recurring symbol appeared in its margins, always drawn in ink darker than the rest. 2 V-shapes, one upright and one inverted, joined at their tips. The text spoke of it only briefly. Where duality meets, power is promised. One reaches above, one below. Where they meet, a door is marked. For those that enter, it binds, it demands, it remembers. Harold paused at the passage, intrigued but uncertain. He traced the sigil with a fingertip, but turned the page too quickly, consumed by the idea of the ritual itself. He did not understand its deeper meaning. Harold spent days researching each glyph, each turn of phrase, cross-referencing what he could with rare books and occult forums. Through it all, a single ritual caught his eye. One designed not to worship, but to capture a demon. To bind it, make it do one's bidding, and if strong enough, extract power. For the first time in weeks, Harold felt a purpose stronger than grief. He would take control. He would get his justice. Over the next few months, Harold meticulously gathered the ingredients and constructed a ritual altar in the shadows of his wine cellar. His relentless desire for power and for justice drove him forward, steady and unstoppable, like a ship bound for wreckage beneath a starless sky. His course was set. Nothing would deter him now. The day of the summoning had come. Everything was prepared, even the sacrifice. Once a man of character and refinement, Harold had fallen so far that taking a life now felt like just another step toward what he wanted. The heavy air in the wine cellar pulsed with a quiet, malevolent energy. Candlelight flickered along the stone walls, casting dancing shadows over the crude altar Harold had constructed. Wood, bone, and symbols carved deep enough to weep crimson. The floor was slick with ritual markings, circles within circles, lines etched with painstaking care. The sacrifice lay silent now, his life's blood pooling, steaming faintly in the cold room. Harold barely looked at the body. His heart pounded with anticipation, not regret. The final words of the incantation curled from Harold's lips like smoke, bitter and ancient. The flames sputtered, shrinking to pale blue flickers as the shadows within the wine cellar thickened, bleeding together until they congealed into a single, writhing mass. It clawed its way upward, twisting, shaping itself into the rough outline of a man, unnaturally tall, its limbs too long, its eyes burning like dying coals beneath a hooded brow. The thing hovered just above the stone floor, held fast within the tight circle etched in blood and salt at Harold's feet. The containment sigils pulsed faintly, anchoring the creature in place. For a moment, silence. Then, the thing smiled, a slow, jagged stretch of 2 white teeth. "Harold Mercer," it drawled, voice layered with whispers that echoed from nowhere. "You've gone to such lengths, blood, bone, even the proper precautions." Its eyes flicked down to the glowing circle. "Clever." Harold stood firm, though his throat tightened beneath the weight of the thing's gaze. "You know why I've called you?" The demon's grin widened, but it made no move to cross the boundary. It simply tilted its head, coiling within the confines of the circle like smoke pressed in a jar. "Of course I do," it purred. But indulge me. What is it you think you want? Power, Harold answered steady. Strength. Justice. The thing let out a low hum of amusement, its form rippling as it shifted weightlessly. Justice, it repeated, savoring the word. And here I thought you'd be more original. It leaned forward, still bound within the circle, but close enough that Harold could see the faint black veins pulsing beneath its semi-translucent skin. Tell me, Harold, have you thought beyond your immediate desire? Or are you, like most men, stumbling after revenge, imagining it will ease the hollow in your chest? Harold's eyes narrowed, but the question sank its claws in. The demon knew. You've done your homework, Harold muttered. A dry, rasping chuckle filled the cellar. No homework required. The demon's eyes flared brighter. I smell it on you. Loss, grief, that quiet, gnawing ache that creeps into your bones when the house falls still. It's suffocating. The creature's grin sharpened. So let's not pretend this is about noble ideals, that you want to bring some grand sense of justice to the world. The words stung, but Harold held his ground. The demon lingered in silence for a moment, watching him with that unnatural patience only old, wicked things possess. You've already done so much, it finally purred, voice sliding through the room like oil. The blood, the altar, the sacrifice, you've proven yourself willing. Its molten eyes narrowed, reading Harold with unnerving ease. So, why stop at revenge? Why scrape for scraps of power when you could build something greater? Harold's jaw tensed. Build? The demon tilted its head, savoring the moment. This city, it's ripe, broken, hungry for leadership. It leaned in, the circle crackling faintly as its form pressed against the invisible barrier. Men chase influence, wealth, control. But they're so fragile, so easily undone. A slow, conspiratorial smile curved its lips. You bind me to your will, yes, but imagine, others like me, bound, hidden within men of power, of violence, of ambition. You don't seize power, Harold. You manufacture it, you plant it, you water it with blood. You grow an empire, one bound by something far stronger than law or money. The room seemed to pulse with quiet, infernal promise. All it requires is vision, and the courage to open the door a little wider. The demon's eyes flared, the red glow deepening to something like smoldering coals beneath ash. And you've already taken the first step, haven't you? Harold said nothing at first. The cellar reeked of blood and wax, but beneath it, something else simmered. Possibility. Dangerous. Irresistible. His heart pounded, but it wasn't fear that gripped him now. It was the slow, creeping allure of the demon's words, the audacity of it, binding more of them, slipping their influence into the cracks of the city, into its leaders, its criminals, its forgotten shadows. He could reshape this place, mold it into something better, or at least into something that answered to him. Harold's eyes drifted to the body on the floor, the first price, a price he'd already paid. The demon watched, perfectly still within the confines of the circle, as if savoring the weight of Harold's thoughts. It didn't rush him. It didn't need to. Finally, Harold spoke, voice low and measured. And in return, what do you gain? The demon's smile thinned, sharp as glass. I taste freedom, slivers of it. I get to walk this world even if bound. Its head tilted, eyes smoldering. But more than that, I and my kind get to revel in the despair that those who would come against us will surely experience. Harold's lip curled faintly, weighing each word with the gravity it deserved. "You seek to make me your pawn in this?" Harold scoffed. A dry chuckle slithered from the creature's throat. "Pawn? Oh no, Harold. You'll be far more useful than that. Willing men always are." It let the words hang, heavy with implication. "And when the time comes," the demon added softly, "when your enemies kneel, when this city trembles beneath your fingertips, I'll only ask for what I've already earned." Harold considered him for a long, quiet moment. His mind spun with images of power, of his enemies ruined, of the grief that had hollowed him finally replaced with cold, absolute control. The moral lines? Those had already blurred the moment he'd spilled blood on the cellar floor. Finally, Harold stepped forward, stopping just at the circle's edge. "Tell me," he said, voice steady. "What do I need to do?" The demon's eyes brightened, their red glow pulsing with quiet triumph. "It has already begun," the demon declared. Then it laughed. The sound echoed off the stone walls, not as one voice, but as dozens layered atop one another. Male, female, humans, something else entirely. It filled the cellar, rattling the glass bottles and dancing along Harold's spine like cold fingers. The deal was struck. The door had cracked open, and there was no turning back now. The wine cellar was quiet, save for the faint crackle of dying candlelight. The remnants of the summoning still lingered in the air, smoke, ash, and something colder. Something that clung to the walls and whispered in the corners. The demon, now wrapped in a sleek human facade, leaned casually against the far wall. His sharp features and dark eyes made him look like any hired enforcer, but Harold knew better. He could feel what lay beneath the skin. Ancient, dangerous, utterly inhuman. "You may call me Vaelros," the creature offered as if reading his thoughts. His voice curled through the room like smoke and silk, layered with something sharp beneath. Harold's lips parted slightly. "Call you Vaelros? Meaning that's not—" "It's enough for now," the demon cut in smoothly, his faint grin holding no warmth. "Once I held rank. Among the fallen, that still means something. And soon, so will your name." The unspoken implication settled between them like a stone. Harold swallowed hard, unsure whether fear or curiosity had the tighter grip on his chest. "So," Vaelros mused, inspecting his cufflinks as if they were the most interesting thing in the world, "who's the scariest man in this city?" Harold frowned, unsure if it was a real question or another one of the creature's games. "Why?" he asked warily. The demon smiled faintly. "Because you're going to meet him." Harold's stomach tightened. "The scariest man in the city? No thanks." The demon's eyes gleamed, patient, amused. "Humor me. Who is it?" Harold hesitated, but the answer came easily. "Marcus Vega." The butcher of the docks." The demon's smile widened. "Perfect." "Perfect?" Harold scoffed. "He's a stone-cold killer, controls half the underworld. Hell, people vanish for looking at him the wrong way. You want me to end up as one of those stories?" The demon pushed off the wall, crossing the room with unhurried grace. His voice was calm, but the undertone carried steel. "You want power, Harold? Influence? You want to reshape this city? You don't do that nibbling around the edges. You start with a big fish." He stopped, standing just close enough for his presence to press in. "Because once you catch the big one, the rest of the lake follows." Harold exhaled slowly, doubt gnawing at him. "And you think Vega's just going to sit down, have tea, and shake my hand?" "No," the demon replied simply. He's going to try to scare you, intimidate you, maybe kill you." Harold's jaw tightened. "But," the demon continued, his voice dipping lower, smoother, "that's where I come in. I'll be there, whispering the right words, turning fear into leverage." The demon's grin sharpened, teeth gleaming faintly in the low light. "Trust me, Harold. Once Marcus Vega bends, the rest of them, they'll crawl." The weight of it all settled on Harold. The risk, the possibility, the price he'd already paid. A meeting with the devil to impress a monster. And yet, beneath the fear, was the glimmer of something else. Possibility. It didn't take long for Harold to arrange the meeting. It was as if the red carpet had been rolled out for him. The place and time were set, yet Harold couldn't shake the growing knot in his stomach. Was this really happening? Some months ago, if someone had told him he'd be meeting with Marcus Vega, he'd have called them crazy. But now, here he was, standing on the razor's edge, a man driven by the lust for power. 3 days later, the meeting came. The warehouse reeked of salt air and old machine oil. Overhead, a single flickering bulb cast long shadows across the concrete floor. At the far end of the space sat Marcus Vega, Tacoma's king without a crown. His reputation dripped off him like sweat built on blood, fear, and the kind of ruthlessness Harold could only imagine. 8 men surrounded him, hardened, armed, watching Harold like a fresh cut of meat delivered to the slaughterhouse. Harold's mouth was dry. His heart hammered so hard it drowned out the faint hum of the city beyond these walls. The suit he'd picked out that morning, clean, pressed, meant to project confidence, now felt like a costume draped over a scared little man. Vega eyed him lazily, amusement curling his lips. "You got some balls showing up here alone, Mercer," he drawled, his voice smooth and low like distant thunder. "Most folks who hear my name, they don't come knocking." "So, what? You come to buy protection? Or maybe you're just lost?" Harold opened his mouth and fumbled. I came because there's..." Vega raised an eyebrow. The guards exchanged smirks. Harold's pulse spiked, his throat constricted. He was in over his head, drowning. And then, the whisper. "Stop trembling, Harold. Breathe. Tell him about Mara. Tell him what I told you." The voice curled through his mind like smoke under a door. Calm, cold, unyielding. Beside him, Harold's bodyguard and the demon wearing human skin stood still as a statue. Dark-tailored clothes, sharp, predatory features, eyes too deep, too dark to belong to a mortal man. Harold's gaze flicked to him, just for a heartbeat. The demon's faint, knowing smile was all the confirmation he needed. His hand steadied at his side. His breath slowed. He tried again, halting but firmer this time. "I came because you have a problem, a loyalty problem." Vega's smile flattened, the room's atmosphere shifting, just slightly. Harold's voice still shook, but the words were landing now, scraping together into something solid. "Her name's Mara, North End. She's skimming your supply runs, cash, product, maybe worse." The guards stopped smirking. Vega leaned forward, his eyes sharpening. "How the hell do you know that?" Harold's fear still lingered, simmering just beneath the surface. But for the first time tonight, control trickled in like warm blood returning to numb fingers. He straightened his shoulders. His voice steadied. "I have good sources," he replied quietly. "Ones that don't lie, ones that don't steal." For a long, suffocating moment, silence filled the warehouse. Then Vega leaned back, tapping his thick gold ring against the table, studying Harold like a puzzle piece that suddenly didn't fit. "You got 5 minutes," Vega said at last. "Say your piece, but you better pray you're not bullshitting me." Harold's gaze drifted briefly to the demon at his side. His companion offered no words now, only that faint, satisfied grin. The fear wasn't gone, but it no longer ruled him. Harold stepped forward, adjusting his cuffs, his voice low but growing steadier with every word. 5 minutes is all I need. By the night's end, a deal was struck. And Mara? I'd say she suffered. But even Velros seemed a bit repulsed by the night's events. Over the next few months, Harold moved through the veins of the city, meeting with those who held the power he sought. Politicians, business magnates, and the quiet, dangerous men lurking in the shadows. Some came willingly, binding themselves to demons for promises of influence and protection. Others vanished. You were either part of Harold's design, or you were snipped off like a loose thread from a designer suit.
And that is where we'll leave things for now. But the story isn't over, not by a long shot. The Inheritance Bloodlines continues. Part 2 drops in 2 weeks. So mark your calendars. You won't want to miss what's coming next. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. I always appreciate hearing your thoughts. Your support helps to keep the fires lit. As always, if you ever find yourself lost along your travels, let our light be your guide.